There we go. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here on a Saturday afternoon when I know a lot is happening out there. I couldn't believe how many openings are actually tonight. It feels like we're getting close to pre-pandemic times, so we'll see how that goes. We're still at Shoebox Projects here. We're still continuing our online shows for a little while. But I'm Christine Shoemaker, and I run Shoebox Projects, which is an alternative art space. We used to have a physical space here at the Brewery Artist Lofts, and then during the pandemic, we took it online to have online exhibitions. And we've had both group exhibitions and solo shows. And so today I'm really proud to share our solo show with Susan Amorde, Forces of Nature. We've been working on this with Susan for quite a while. And so I can't wait to hear more about, what she has to say about this work. So I will pass it over to you, Susan.
Thank you. I first want to thank you all for coming. I'm so happy to see all my friends and family. And I want to thank Christine and Emily and Shelley from Shoebox, who've been just so supportive and instrumental in moving my practice along. And Delbar Shabazz, who's been my guidance throughout all things watercolor. So as you all know, I've been doing sculpture for many years. And using, suitcases as metaphors for baggage, and doing figure sculpture and doing watercolors is a 180-degree turn for me. I had been wanting to draw for many years, and I happened to mention it to Christine, who then was kind of like, well, you need to draw. And she encouraged me to participate in the call and response project that Shoebox puts on, where you have to respond within 24 hours to somebody else, your partner's artwork. And so I started drawing. I picked up an old set of watercolors, and I thought, okay, because when I don't do something for a long time, I always think, oh, I can't do that anymore. I don't know how to draw, whatever. So I decided to take some watercolor classes on Zoom. And, as we all experienced the pandemic, the world in chaos, floods, fires, it was just insanity going on around us. I really found attracted to doing nature watercolors first because it really gave me a respite from all the craziness and insanity. I really depended on being in my garden during the pandemic, and I've always been, nature's always been really important to me. So learning how to paint watercolors was challenging, and nature seemed a good way to get into it. I had to start from scratch. I didn't know anything about brushes or paint or paper or any of the materials associated with painting, because I've really never painted. So it was a challenge from day one, and I chose probably the most difficult medium to delve into that I could think of. So anyway, I had been isolated at home for months on end, and then had my knee replacement in the summer of 2020, and had an allergic reaction to some medication. And I really just was ready to do something, take control of my life, take control of my art. My administrative job was winding down. So I was ready to really take the plunge, because getting into watercolors was really taking the plunge. It's really a difficult, pretty unforgiving medium. Why I chose watercolors, maybe my dabbling in them a little bit kind of steered me that way, but I'm glad I did. I'm really enjoying it. It's frustrating, it's very challenging, but I really, I'm kind of taken with it. I did a lot of research online. I looked up everything. I looked up watercolor paints and brushes and just everything about it. In addition to taking some Zoom classes, I read books and watched how-to videos ad nauseum. So I was big on research. Thank God for the internet while we were all stuck at home. So nature was a real way of getting a respite from all the chaos, and just celebrate our natural world, which seems to be really hounded these days, as well as the rest of the world. And then I took a portrait painting class and found that I really enjoyed drawing human faces again, like I had used to do for quite a while. And then I was trying to pick a subject matter. So I've been watching the news a lot. For the last several years, I've really been addicted to the news, which is probably not so good, but I really came to admire all the women who had been elected to Congress in the 2018 election started. So they took office in 2019. Seeing all the women at the State of the Union address in early 2019, all in their suffragette white, I was just really impactful. And I felt really proud of them and proud of being a woman. And so that kind of started me thinking. I started researching women in politics, and then I phone banked for Stacey Abrams' Fair Fight organization during the senatorial runoffs. And I'm just in awe of all the women I chose from a list of 20 that I was very ambitious of me to try and tackle that many, which I didn't get to, but I just think that they are a force of personality, each and every one. They're not only articulate and passionate, all of them just have such a presence. So it really, that's what I was drawn to do for the portrait section. What else? I mean, doing portraits of prominent, recognizable women was also very challenging. And I've struggled with all of it. And I'm very pleased that I got this far with all of it, because I had never painted and I haven't done any drawing for so long. So I really feel like this is the nature part, and the portraits they're both a force of nature. And they all gave me hope. So that's my little spiel.
Let's look at the individual works. And do you want to talk about like where your ideas for each of the works came from?
You know, they were like all of the images that I used as resource photographs or resource images came from the internet. And then everything was changed. So, you know, the colors were changed, you know, where the tree was sitting, just the whole thing. It was my interpretation of a photograph on the internet. And I love this one because I just want to go there. I would like to go anywhere actually, but I would really like to go there. It just is, it's very serene. yet it's, the wind is blowing and the waves are moving around in the water. And I just really thought this was a beautiful image and a good way to start learning the watercolor skills. So Stacy, I tried to do something about each person. I didn't want to just do a portrait. I wanted to do a likeness and really get into each person's personality and what they were about. So I did, again, a ton of research on each person. And Stacy is well known for her voting rights advocacy. So behind her, and I'm not sure it's legible to everybody, but behind her is the words from the I voted sticker that has I voted in different languages. And I painted it like a whitewashed wall behind her. But I just find her so amazing. And I admire her so much. So she's one of the women I decided to do.
And tell us about, like, I know you went through several iterations of painting her.
Yeah.
Tell us about the process.
So I tried a lot of different things, and I was using the colors from the sticker, the I voted sticker of blue and red, and got some feedback from a few people that it really wasn't working. And I really have never painted, so not only to tackle doing a portrait with a likeness, but then to incorporate a background that says something was another challenge. So then I decided to mute the background to make the portrait pop out more, because it was really about the portrait, less about what was in the background. But I wanted it to be cohesive. So I used colors that are actually in her hair, and there are a lot of colors in her face too. So does that explain
it? Definitely. And then for the portraits, Jeannie is asking, did you consult several photos, different angles of each person's photo?
Tons. I looked everyone up on the internet. I had a wide array of their portraits, them speaking, them in different outfits, and chose which one I wanted. This was a combination of several photos. I was very aware of copyright issues, since I used to be in charge of that at the Getty and publications. And so I was really careful not to copy directly any of the images that I used. So it was really a combination. And I really liked her hair length in this, because some of her, her hair is like a different length in every single picture of her. But I like this one the best, and I made up the dress. And so yeah, I did a lot of research, looked at a lot of pictures.
And then Pam is wondering, in the use of color in your landscapes, the pink sky and the blue tones in the faces, for example, or both the landscapes and how did you choose the coloring? The colors that you used, like for the sky and the, flesh tones and.
Well, some were based or, kind of hinted at in the photographs I used. The colors in her skin are a technique that I learned of layering thin layers of paint on top of another to create a color. So you don't just put, brown, you put the different colors that make up brown, or you can make brown in a lot of different colors. And there was a lot of green in some of the photos I saw. So I really learned a lot about looking at color and trying to find colors in photographs that don't exist as much in real life when you look at somebody, but they are there. So it was a process. I don't know, does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. And as we move forward, Emily's wondering, how did doing previous 3D figurative work inform the 2D work?
Oh, I think a lot, because I used to do portraits in sculpture. And so I kept wanting to like touch the paper and make it do what I wanted. It's like I wanted to make that nose pop out, but I had to learn that in order to do that, sometimes you have to make one part darker to make an area pop out, or use a different color. So I think it really helped that I knew what a 3D person looked like. And I've been out in nature, so that was a little easier. So this was a close-up of a tree trunk, which I just thought was so cool, and used a variety of different colors and techniques that I had learned, using masking fluid to white out areas, and then you paint and then you take it off. It's like liquid rubber. That was another technique I learned. The other thing I did a lot of research on and became very good at was removing watercolor paint from paper. There's a lot of techniques to do that. And so this one was just a lot of layers, and I used some of the masking fluid for the white parts. And in watercolor, you have to start with lights, plan out your whole painting, and then move to darks as you go along. So it's kind of backwards from other kinds of painting, where you start with light areas, or you start with dark areas and add light.
What aspect of watercolor did you find to be the most challenging?
All of it. All of it. It's just knowing what to do next, and I made mistakes. I started all over. I don't know. It's a very challenging medium. You have to plan out your whole picture, what you're going to paint and what process you want to use. So that was challenging. It's a different way of looking at things. It's not as freeform. My sculpture is a little, well, my figure sculpture, you get your fingers in clay and you're moving around with your hands. So it's much more physical. So maybe I found that the stillness of this was more difficult, because I really feel like I want to do something wild and physical now, maybe in mixed media. But anyway, it's a pretty fascinating medium. So this one is Deb Holland. She's the Secretary of the Interior. She is just a real force of nature, actually, in real life. She's elegant and has such a presence. She's the first Indigenous person to be head of the Department of the Interior, and came from New Mexico. She was a congresswoman before she was appointed to the cabinet. And so for her, I tried to, there were a lot of portraits of her. This one was a very casual one that I found all over from different publications of her standing in a field. And I really like this one the best. I think it really shows her presence of personality, and I like the colors of her shirt, and the background was a whole nother story. I was doing research on Native American symbols, looked up her swearing in ceremony, and she was wearing this gorgeous ribbon skirt made by a Native American woman. And it had a symbol of corn stalks on it, and butterfly and a few other things. And I thought, oh, I can use that. And then one of my friends who is a little more versed in Native culture said, I don't know if you should do that. That's a very sacred symbol, and you might offend someone. So I set out to do a lot of research on if it was appropriate for a non-Native person to use Native symbols in an artwork, even though it was of her. I found very little on the internet. One was, I found a lot of articles on don't wear Native American type costumes for Halloween, like a headdress or whatever, because headdresses are given to warriors. So I wasn't doing that, but I really wanted to honor her. And so I decided to call her tribal office, her pueblo in New Mexico. And I spoke with someone, and he said, oh, I can't help you because I don't know. He said something about like the women have different dress, and I don't, he says, I can't approve or disapprove of you doing this. He was really most unhelpful, I have to say. So I went to a curator of a museum who was head of Native American studies. And he was very kind and wrote me right back and said, well, I can't help you either because I don't know what her tribe would feel comfortable with or what would be thought of as okay for you to use. So I thought, okay, I'm going in circles. So I called her office at the Secretary of the Interior, and her office, of course, I left this lovely message and never got a response. Then I looked, I don't know, I started looking for people who knew Native people in New Mexico, and I was just coming up with dead ends. So I decided not to put anything in the background for her. That I most of all did not want to offend anyone. I wanted to pay respect to her, as with all the women. And so I thought that was the most true and respectful thing I could do. So I did not do any more than the portrait.
Well, the portrait, yeah, as we've talked about, the portrait definitely pops with the white background, you know, the lighter background. And so you can see her, which is one of the most important things. And Jeannie's asking, as a sculptor, are the existing planes of like the face what you see first when you look at the photos when you're, you know, ready to create these? And did black and white photos assist you in your 3D illusions?
I definitely looked at black and white images. Sometimes you can see lights and darks in a person's face, and you can see shapes in black and white photos. I mean, I looked at everything. I did so much research on every person and everything I did. So the other part was, what was the other part again?
And did black and white photos assist you in your 3D illusions, or I'm not sure if, do you mean illustrations, Jeannie? Or
Well, I meant since she's working on a 2D surface, two-dimensional surface, and she's creating an illusion of a three-dimensional figure, then I was just wondering, what especially helped her create this lovely volumetric face and neck and shoulders. What was the key thing, Susan, that helped you? You said light and dark in the black and white, so that's definitely an answer. But were there other things, other key indicators for you as the artist, finding ways to make her volumetric?
Well, it was a new surface to me, painting in 2D was, you have to create volume in a much different way than in sculpture. You have to do it with color. You have to do it with lights and darks. I think it helped that I really knew what a neck looked like and what a shirt would feel like if I was sculpting it. But I kind of revisited all the facial features in drawing, and because I had to draw them, so I was looking at a lot of figure drawing books and portrait drawing, and to kind of refresh my skills on doing these portraits. I mean, a lot of it is with color, which was different. I mean, I use color on my sculptures, but not like this. Using color like this was a new thing, another thing I had to learn. And so I don't know. Does that answer your question, Jeannie?
Yeah, that
No.
we're good.
Okay. So this one I really liked because of the light, airy quality. I think it came from a photograph that was like real flowers and succulents and berries, and just played with the transparent nature of watercolor, of making things recede in the distance by making them more fadey, and making things in the foreground darker and more colorful. Doing a little playing with the paint for water in the vase, and doing washes over things that were already painted. I don't know, it was a really fun thing to play with watercolor for this and make it my own. I mean, all of these came from some source of either a real photograph, real photographs of real things. But I thought this was just fun, and it was pretty, and I really needed to do something pretty because everything was so dark. So I really enjoyed kind of making this my own and doing something very colorful.
I'm sure the experience that you received, doing each watercolor informed the next also.
Yes.
Just new techniques, different, perspectives. I mean, all of that.
Yes, for sure. So this is Ilhan Omar. She's the representative from Minnesota in the Congress. She's really an amazing person. She's a refugee from Somalia. What she went through was just astounding to get here, and then to get herself a new life, and then become elected to the Congress. I really admire that. In the background, I used a mix of the Somali flag and the US flag. Somali flag is blue with one white star, so it really kind of fit seemed to fit her. The scarf was like a second portrait in itself, I have to say. It was really took a long time. And, with each one of these, I had to learn new techniques. And I actually finished this early on and was getting things photographed, part of them photographed, and realized that she looked like she was dead. Her skin looked blue. And so I went back in and I reworked her skin and made her kind of pop out from the background, and used one of the techniques that I had learned about taking paint off paper to fade the background, but decided not to get rid of it or whitewash it. I thought it was faded enough where she was really the most prominent thing.
Awesome. It's a beautiful portrait.
Thank you. And these succulents were, that was really fun to kind of, they weren't really that color. I just enjoyed using color to experiment, and also to experiment on making branches and making them look 3D or more 3D. It ended up being fun. And another one of my experimentations in the watercolor painting world. So Katie Porter is, she's a congresswoman from Irvine, California. She is just an amazing person. I don't know if you've ever seen her in a hearing. She's been a consumer rights lawyer and advocate. I think she's a lawyer. She's also studied under Elizabeth Warren, and she carries around a whiteboard when she goes into the hearings. And she also she writes on the whiteboard. She'll go through with a CEO of, I don't know, a pharmaceutical company or a big bank, and she'll go through how much people make who work for them and how are they supposed to live. I mean, this one on the right, I think, had to do with some kind of medications. She's just a real amazing personality, and she's very articulately just nails these big executives to the wall in her very pleasant way. So I just really admire her. This picture I used as a resource came off a television. So she's a little more pinky and rosy than some of the other pictures. I really liked her haircut. So it was another one. I was very picky about people's haircuts because I really thought this was flattering, and her jewelry and whatnot. So I really enjoyed doing a portrait of her.
Monica's asking, what are the things you learned in watercolor that you'll take back to the sculpture world?
I think I'm going to incorporate sculpture with watercolors somehow. I don't know if I have a bunch of frames that I had like shadow boxes made out of that are all antiqued and waiting for sculptures. And I was wondering what I was going to put in the back of them, because I wanted to have little bronze figures inside these frames. So I think I'll be able to paint something for the background. And I think learning more about color, if I'm doing patinas, I think I'll have a better sense of color combinations, even though doing patinas, you're either using chemicals or I'm using acrylics or oils. So it's a different painting process, but still, I think learning about color and yeah, I think those are the things I think that I'm going to take back, because I'm already thinking about, I'm kind of itching to do some sculpture. It's been a long time. Yeah.
And Emily's asking, do you plan on continuing, or wait, we asked, or do you plan on continuing working in portraiture and or watercolor? I guess it's a similar question. But yeah, portraiture especially.
Yes, I really love doing the portraits, even more than the nature ones, which I like doing too. But I have, as I said, a list of 20 women that I wanted to paint. That'll probably take me 5 years at the rate I go with these. But I do have a couple more that I wanted to paint before I stop doing them. I want to do Tammy Duckworth and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And then I think I'll stop. So I'll do 2 more and then I'll stop. And then for now. Or I might do portraits in charcoal or do something else. I don't know. So I'm going to do a couple more for sure. I've already started actually. So
Of course.
yes, I've been very good working. I've been working at home for a year and a half. I've really grown out of my house studio, which is my whole house. The portraits are 18 by 24, so they're getting a little unwieldy on my kitchen table. Kind of ready to go back to the studio. But I have air conditioning here. It's been very comfortable. It's been the first time I've ever done art where I lived, and doing a live work studio really has its advantages. While the paint's drying, I can go throw some laundry in the washing machine, you know? And there's a lot of paint drying cycles that you have to go through. You put on a layer of paint, you let it dry, you put on another layer of paint, you let it dry. It's very time consuming, but worth it when you see kind of the richness of the color that you're getting at the end. So this one, I got a little more abstract, which I kind of liked. I didn't know where I was going with this. It was a really weird picture. And it's one of my favorite ones now. I tried all kinds of things. I used salt in the sky, where when the paint is wet, you throw big chunks of salt in, and it makes those little bursts of color and then dries up, kind of soaks up some of the paint. So that was kind of fun. So I was experimenting with that. And so I like the result. I might try some more abstract things too in watercolor. Maybe non-representational. We'll see.
Great.
Yeah.
I think this is the last one as part of the exhibition. I'll scroll back up here, but if anybody else has any other questions that you want to throw out there, anything else you'd like to talk about, Susan?
I don't think so. I'm really, let's see if I can say this without crying. I've been through so much the last couple years, that it took a real force of nature within myself to get through this. And I was just absolutely determined. I had hives, I was hot, I was this, I was that, my knee hurt, everything. And I was just determined to paint. I was determined to do my art. It's the first time I've ever done my art full time. And it's a real gift. Pandemic really gifted me the time to create, and I'm taking advantage of it every second. Like I just have to. So I'm really proud of myself.
You are a force of nature. You know? I mean, the last couple of years during the pandemic and with everything you've gone through, like you said, every time we talked, it's like, art was always there. You were always painting or in the studio or, whatever it was. And so, I mean, the show is about this work, but it's definitely about you too.
I agree.
Great. There's some great comments in the chat, and I'll go ahead and save the chat for you, Susan.
Okay, I can't do that and
Yeah.
talk. Hard time with chat, although it's easier on my laptop. So I'm so happy to see you all. I can't thank you enough for coming today. Everybody's been very supportive all along, and I really appreciate it. I called on many friends. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? What should I do next? And very grateful for all the support.
That's what we do. We support each other. Definitely.
It wasn't in my plan to cry, but speaking from the heart, actually. So,
well, we love you, Susan.
Thank you. I love all of you too.
You're welcome. And I guess if there's no other questions or comments or anything, thank you all so much for being here. This is recorded and it's on the Shoebox Projects Facebook page, so you can, rewatch it if you missed part of it or want to watch it again. But can't wait to see what you do next, Susan. And congratulations.
Me too. It'll be a surprise for all of us. All right.
That's how it always is.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right, everybody. I hope you have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Christine.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.